Tears are often seen as a sign of weakness, a silent admission that we have been broken. But what if I told you that every tear you have shed carries a power far greater than pain? Each droplet is not a surrender, but a seed of transformation. Life does not break you to leave you in pieces, it teaches you to turn vulnerability into courage, despair into resilience, and sorrow into strength. When we learn to honor our tears rather than hide them, we discover a strength that no victory alone could ever give. Tears are often misunderstood as a mark of weakness, but they are the language of the soul revealing what the mind cannot comprehend. Every tear carries a story, a moment when life has touched the depths of your being and shaken you awake. To cry is not to surrender, it is to acknowledge that you are alive, that you feel, and that you are willing to confront the truth of your own existence. Those who hide their tears may appear strong, but their strength is brittle like glass, easily shattered. True strength begins the moment we allow ourselves to feel fully without shame or restraint. Every tear is a mirror reflecting the unspoken struggles we carry inside. Pain, loss, and disappointment are not punishments, but teachers guiding us to the parts of ourselves that have been neglected. When we stop resisting these emotions and instead lean into them, we gain clarity. The very act of facing sorrow strengthens the heart because it demands honesty and courage. It is in this raw confrontation with life that resilience is forged, layer by layer, like steel hardened in fire. Tears are the silent forge where the spirit is tempered and refined. Vulnerability is the path through which tears transform into strength. To be vulnerable is to stand exposed without pretension, knowing that life may wound you, yet refusing to turn away. Each time you embrace your own fragility, you expand the boundaries of your inner power. Hiding from emotions may keep the world at bay, but it isolates the soul. Sharing or simply acknowledging your tears, even privately, opens channels of empathy and understanding with yourself and others. Strength is not found in denial, but in the courage to inhabit your own truth. Tears also carry energy, a force that can be converted into clarity and determination. Emotional pain, when observed consciously, becomes a guide rather than a burden. Each wave of sorrow teaches you to navigate life with awareness, discernment, and patience. What once felt heavy transforms into wisdom, insight, and a quiet power that cannot be shaken by circumstance. The energy of tears, when embraced, fuels resilience, focus, and the ability to respond rather than react. It is through this alchemy that suffering is not endured passively, but transformed into a potent source of strength. The journey of turning tears into strength is not instantaneous, it is a continuous practice of awareness, acceptance, and courage. Each tear you allow to flow without judgment chips away at fear and self-doubt, revealing a sturdier, wiser self beneath. Life will continue to challenge and test, but those who have learned to embrace their tears carry a fortress within, unshaken by adversity. The vulnerability that once felt like fragility becomes the foundation of invincibility. In this way, tears are no longer signs of weakness, but the most authentic declaration of the power and depth of the human spirit. Acknowledging our emotions is often seen as a concession, a moment when we admit that life has touched us too deeply and left a mark. Society teaches that showing feeling is dangerous, that it exposes us to judgment, ridicule, or failure. Yet the truth is that the very act of embracing vulnerability transforms it into power. To feel fully and openly is to stand face to face with life, without masks, without pretense, and without fear. Each moment of honest acknowledgement strengthens the soul because it is an act of alignment with reality, not resistance to it. The courage to say, "This is what I feel and I will live through it," is the kind of strength that no external achievement can ever replicate. Vulnerability forces us to confront ourselves in ways that comfort never could. It demands that we face our fears, insecurities and limitations without running or hiding. In doing so, it dismantles the illusions we carry about who we are and what we can endure. Each time we acknowledge our pain or admit our weaknesses, we expand our capacity for resilience. Strength does not lie in perfection or invincibility. It lies in the conscious choice to be fully present in our own experience, no matter how uncomfortable or challenging. The soul grows robust when it no longer hides from what it truly is. When we embrace vulnerability, we also deepen our connection with others. People are drawn not to those who appear flawless, but to those who are real, honest and courageous in their humanity. Sharing emotion or simply holding it without denial creates resonance and trust. Empathy is born from witnessing vulnerability, and in that shared space, relationships gain depth and authenticity. Strength, therefore, is not only an internal quality, but also a bridge that connects hearts. By being vulnerable, we give permission for others to do the same, creating a network of mutual courage and support. Vulnerability also transforms the way we respond to life's challenges. When we stop resisting our feelings and instead embrace them, our actions become grounded in awareness rather than reaction. Decisions made from a place of acknowledgement and clarity carry more weight and precision. Emotional honesty allows us to move through difficulty without being consumed by it. What was once weakness becomes insight, what was once fear becomes discernment, and what was once pain becomes a guide toward wisdom. Strength emerges not in spite of vulnerability, but through it. Finally, embracing vulnerability nurtures an inner freedom that cannot be taken away. When we accept our emotions fully, we no longer need external validation or approval. We are no longer enslaved by fear of judgment or the compulsion to appear strong. True courage arises from knowing that our worth is inherent, not dependent on circumstances or perception. Each act of vulnerability, each moment of emotional honesty fortifies the soul, creating a strength that is quiet, steady and unshakable. In this way, the soul that dares to be vulnerable becomes invincible, and the act of embracing vulnerability itself becomes the ultimate expression of power. Accepting pain is not a surrender, it is an act of profound courage. Most people instinctively resist what hurts, pushing away discomfort, blaming circumstances or pretending it does not exist. Yet resistance only amplifies suffering because energy is spent fighting what already is. When pain is met with awareness rather than denial, it begins to reveal its hidden lessons. Every moment of suffering carries insight about our limits, our attachments, and the patterns that keep us trapped. Acceptance is not passive, it is a deliberate engagement with life as it is, and in that engagement, transformation begins. Pain teaches best when it is not ignored. Every loss, disappointment or wound carries information that cannot be accessed through avoidance. When we accept what has happened, we stop wasting energy on frustration, fear or regret, and we start observing the truth behind the experience. The rawness of pain exposes what is unhealed within us and illuminates the places where growth is necessary. In this way, acceptance turns suffering into a mirror, showing us the parts of ourselves that must evolve. The moment we stop struggling against reality, we open a doorway to insight and wisdom. Acceptance changes the relationship we have with life itself. Instead of seeing events as obstacles or punishments, we begin to recognize them as teachers. Resistance clouds the mind and hardens the heart, but acceptance softens perception and sharpens clarity. Pain that is embraced is no longer a burden, it becomes a guide. Each challenge encountered with openness strengthens resilience and cultivates patience. Life stops being a series of battles to endure and becomes a process of understanding, learning and transforming. When we accept our suffering, we also gain the power to act from clarity rather than reactivity. Emotional turbulence often leads to decisions rooted in fear, anger or impulsivity. Acceptance creates a stillness in which the mind can see options clearly and respond intelligently. Action born from awareness is precise, aligned and effective because it comes from a place of truth rather than compulsion. Pain becomes not a chain that restricts us, but a tool that sharpens judgment, strengthens resolve and deepens insight. Ultimately, transformation through acceptance is the process by which weakness is converted into strength. The moments that once crushed us now teach endurance. The experiences that once overwhelmed us now cultivate wisdom. Life does not need to be free of suffering to be meaningful, it only requires that we face it with openness and courage. In accepting pain, we discover that the very experiences we resisted are the ones capable of shaping us into more conscious, resilient and powerful beings. Suffering ceases to be a threat and becomes the path through which strength is born. Emotional pain is a teacher that no success or achievement can replace. When life pierces the heart with disappointment, loss or betrayal, it forces a confrontation with the parts of ourselves that we often ignore. Victories and accomplishments can mask weakness, fear or longing, but pain strips away every pretense and reveals the core of who we are. It exposes hidden fears, suppressed desires, and limitations we might never notice in comfort. The moments that hurt the most are the ones that demand our attention, reflection and honesty, and in that reflection, we begin to understand ourselves more deeply. Tears are the physical manifestation of this inner awakening. Each tear signifies an encounter with truth, a confrontation with emotion that has been denied or repressed. When we allow ourselves to feel fully, rather than suppressing or escaping, we begin to see the patterns that govern our behavior and the choices that have led us here. Emotional pain teaches patience because it cannot be hurried. It teaches resilience because enduring it without collapse strengthens the spirit. It teaches humility because it reminds us that life is far greater than our individual control or understanding. The lessons of emotional pain are not merely about endurance, they are about insight. Through suffering, we learn what matters and what does not, which relationships nourish us and which drain us, which habits empower and which imprison us. Pain exposes the illusions we have built around ourselves, our pride, our false sense of security, and our assumptions about permanence. By facing these truths, we gain clarity and the ability to make wiser, more conscious choices. Pain becomes a mirror reflecting both our shadow and our potential. Emotional pain also cultivates empathy and connection. When we have felt deeply, we recognize the depths in others and respond with understanding rather than judgment. The suffering we endure can be transformed into compassion, allowing us to support, guide and comfort those who face similar struggles. Pain becomes not only a teacher for the self but a bridge to others, creating bonds that are rooted in shared humanity and authentic experience. Strength, therefore, grows not in isolation but in the awareness that our pain has meaning beyond ourselves. Ultimately, learning from emotional pain transforms our life in ways that victories never can. Triumphs may bring pride, recognition or fleeting satisfaction, but they rarely touch the depths of the soul. Pain, when met with courage and awareness, reshapes our character, reveals our hidden dimensions, and builds resilience that is unshakable. Every tear shed, every moment endured becomes a lesson etched into the being itself. In this way, emotional pain is not a curse or an obstacle but a powerful teacher, turning vulnerability into wisdom and weakness into unyielding strength. Acknowledging our emotions honestly is not an act of indulgence, it is an act of courage that demands profound awareness. Many people are taught to hide their pain, to maintain appearances of strength, or to push discomfort aside as if it were a burden to be avoided. Yet when we deny what we feel, we imprison ourselves within layers of pretense, allowing fear, shame, and resentment to grow unchecked. Emotional honesty is the conscious decision to face reality without distortion, to name our feelings and to see them for what they truly are. It is through this clarity that the mind and heart begin to align and the foundation of genuine resilience is built. Emotional honesty requires vulnerability, the willingness to expose the inner landscape of the self without fear of judgment. When we confront sorrow, anger or anxiety, we see the patterns that govern our responses and the deeper wounds that have shaped our behavior. Each acknowledgement of what we feel, even if it is quiet and private, breaks the chain of avoidance and creates space for understanding. This honesty is not about dramatizing suffering or seeking sympathy, is about creating a direct connection with the truth of our own experience. In this connection lies a subtle but immense power, a power that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. When we embrace our emotions fully, we cultivate strength that is steady and enduring. Pain and discomfort, once resisted, begin to teach instead of weaken us. The more we allow ourselves to witness what is happening within, the less it controls us. Emotional honesty transforms confusion into clarity and agitation into insight, enabling us to respond rather than react to life's challenges. Resilience is born not from suppression or avoidance, but from the conscious act of naming, feeling, and understanding what we experience. This is the kind of strength that grows silently, imperceptibly, yet shapes every aspect of our being. Sharing our inner truth, even without words, extends the power of emotional honesty beyond ourselves. When we are honest with our emotions, we model a way of being that encourages others to do the same. Authenticity resonates and invites trust, creating a subtle network of connection and empathy. In these moments, strength becomes contagious, not through domination or assertion, but through presence and understanding. Emotional honesty is not self-centered, it is relational, building bridges between hearts and fostering the kind of inner fortitude that can withstand both personal trials and shared struggles. Ultimately, emotional honesty transforms vulnerability into resilience and weakness into strength. By naming and feeling our inner experiences, we reclaim energy that would otherwise be lost to avoidance or denial. Every moment of recognition, every quiet acknowledgement of pain contributes to an unshakable foundation of self-awareness and inner power. This strength is not loud or visible, but it is enduring, unwavering, and transformative. It allows us to move through life with clarity, courage, and the profound knowledge that the most authentic power emerges not from suppression, but from the conscious embrace of what we truly feel. Emotions are not mere reactions, they are raw, powerful energy that flows through every cell of our being. When we suppress them, they stagnate, creating tension, confusion, and inner conflict. Pain, sorrow, and even anger carry a force that, if ignored, can cloud judgment and disrupt the harmony of mind and body. Recognizing emotions as energy allows us to see them as tools rather than obstacles. Each feeling has its own intensity and direction, and when observed consciously, it can be harnessed to illuminate the mind and guide action with precision. The energy in our emotions becomes most potent when we choose not to resist it. Resisting or denying emotional currents only fractures our attention and scatters our inner strength. By allowing ourselves to feel fully, whether through tears, reflection or stillness, we create a channel through which this energy can flow without obstruction. This flow clears mental fog, sharpens focus and provides a clarity that is impossible to achieve through logic alone. The rawness of feeling, once embraced, becomes a compass that points to deeper understanding and intentional action. When consciously channeled, emotional energy becomes a source of determination and drive. Pain that might have immobilized us now fuels resolve. Frustration and anger, rather than being destructive, can ignite persistence and courage. The energy that once threatened to overwhelm becomes a guiding force, motivating disciplined action and focused effort. Every tear shed, every pang of sorrow carries within it the potential for strength, for insight and for transformation. It is the mind's awareness and the heart's acceptance that convert raw emotion into productive energy. This process of channeling emotions requires attention and presence. It is not enough to passively feel. One must engage consciously with the energy, observing its flow, understanding its source and directing it purposefully. Meditation, reflection or deliberate focus can help transform emotional turbulence into clarity and precision. The more we practice this engagement, the more resilient we become, able to maintain balance and intentionality even when circumstances threaten to destabilize us. Energy once lost in distraction or repression is reclaimed and transformed into power. Ultimately, emotions, when recognized as energy, become instruments of growth and mastery. The same force that can tear us apart when uncontrolled can, when harnessed, illuminate the path forward. Tears, grief and intense feelings no longer signal weakness, but indicate the presence of profound, untapped energy. When we learn to channel it consciously, emotions become a wellspring of clarity, focus and determination, shaping our thoughts, actions and life itself into a more deliberate and empowered form. Self-compassion is not a sign of weakness. It is the conscious choice to treat yourself with the same care and understanding you would offer to another. Most people live in relentless self-criticism, believing that toughness comes from denying vulnerability or punishing themselves for mistakes. Yet this only fragments the mind and erodes inner strength. True emotional power emerges when we allow ourselves to acknowledge our imperfections without judgment. Each tear we shed in recognition of our own pain becomes a doorway to acceptance, a signal that we are ready to face ourselves fully rather than hide behind pretense. Through self-compassion, the wounds that have long been ignored begin to soften. Regret, guilt and shame lose their intensity when met with understanding instead of resistance. The act of forgiving ourselves for past errors is not a passive surrender. It is a deliberate reclamation of energy that would otherwise be trapped in resentment. Tears serve as a mirror, reflecting the areas where we have demanded too much of ourselves or judged too harshly. In the gentle acknowledgement of our humanity, we find the seeds of emotional resilience, allowing the heart to expand rather than constrict. Empathy is born from the depths of emotional experience, not from intellect or reason. When a person has known sorrow, they gain the ability to recognize it in another without words. Tears that have flowed in silence become bridges between hearts, carrying understanding that cannot be learned through instruction. Pain refines perception. It allows one to sense the unspoken struggles that others conceal behind smiles and composure. Through shared emotion, even in stillness, a subtle connection forms, one that speaks beyond logic, beyond circumstance. This connection is the foundation upon which true human relationships are built. The capacity for empathy grows through our willingness to confront our own suffering. Those who have run from their pain cannot truly see the pain of another, they remain locked behind the walls of their own avoidance. When we face our emotions honestly, when we allow our tears to teach us, we become more open, more attuned to the feelings of others. Compassion arises not as a moral obligation, but as a natural extension of self-awareness. The heart that has broken and healed becomes softer, more understanding, and capable of embracing difference without judgment. Tears hold within them the power to dismantle illusions and reveal what lies hidden beneath the surface of our being. When we resist them, they become heavy, pressing against the edges of our consciousness and distorting perception. But when we allow them to flow, when we accept the pain that gives birth to them, something shifts deep inside. The mind softens, the heart opens, and the energy trapped within sorrow begins to move freely again. Tears cleans not only the eyes, but the very lens through which we see life, washing away judgment, rigidity and fear. In their quiet descent, they clear the space for wisdom to emerge. Transformation begins the moment resistance ends. Life's challenges are rarely meant to break us, they come to awaken strength that lies dormant beneath our comfort. Every tear shed in awareness becomes a step toward that awakening. Pain loses its destructive power when it is faced without denial, and in that surrender, courage is born. To weep consciously is not to collapse. It is to let go of what no longer serves, to release the past, and to make room for renewal. Tears dissolve the weight of accumulated emotion, allowing clarity and strength to take root where despair once grew. When we no longer fear our tears, they cease to be signs of weakness and become symbols of our power. Each tear carries the wisdom of pain transformed into insight, the courage of vulnerability embraced, and the resilience of a spirit that refuses to be defeated. Life's challenges will continue to come, but when tears become strength, we stand unshaken, flowing with life rather than being crushed by it. In that alchemy, we discover that what once made us fragile is now the foundation of our invincibility.